going on, chat? How we doing today? Doing great. Cannot complain. We're really closing out this book. I think we only got about 10 more pages to go, which is exciting. I think this by far has been my biggest book yet, if not another competing one, which is the CEO Excellence. But without further ado, let's get right into it. Let's waste no more time. Intergenerational living. As Sandra and I discovered that wonderful year, the ability to use wisely the gap between stimulus and response to exercise 4 unique endowments of our human nature empowered us from the inside out. We had tried the outside-in approach, we loved each other, and we had attempted to work through our differences by controlling our attitudes and our behaviors, by practicing useful techniques of human interaction, but our band-aids and aspiring only lasted so long until we had worked and communicated on the level of our essential paradigms. The chronic underlying problems were still there. When we began to work from the inside out, we were able to build a relationship of trust and openness and to resolve dysfunctional differences in a deep and lasting way that never could have come by working from the outside in. The delicious fruits, a rich win-win relationship, a deep understanding of each other, and a marvelous synergy grew out of the roots we nurtured as we examined our programs, re-scripted ourselves, and managed our lives so that we could create time for the important quantum 2 activity of communicating deeply with each other. And there were other fruits. We were able to see on a much deeper level that just as powerfully as our own lives had been affected by our parents, the lives of our children were being influenced and shaped by us, often in ways we didn't even begin to realize. Understanding the power of scripting in our own lives, we felt a renewed desire to do everything we could to make certain that what we passed on to future generations by both precept and examples was based on correct principles. I have drawn particular attention to this book, to those scripts we have been given that we proactively want to change. But as we examine our scripting carefully, many of us will also begin to see beautiful scripts, positive scripts that have been passed down to us that we have blindly taken for granted. Real self-awareness helps us to appreciate those scripts and to appreciate those who have gone before us and nurtured us in principle-based living, mirroring back to us not only what we are, but what we can become. This is transcendent power in a strong intergenerational family, an effectively interdependent family of children, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins can be a powerful force in helping people have a sense of who they are and where they come from and what they stand for. It's great for children to be able to identify themselves with the tribe, to feel that many people know them and care about them, even though they're spread all over the country, and that can be a tremendous benefit as you nurture your family. If one of your children is having difficulty and doesn't really relate with you at a particular time in his life, maybe he can relate to your brother or sister who can become a surrogate father or mother, a mentor or a hero for a period of time. Grandparents who show a great interest in their grandchildren are among the most precious people on this earth. What a marvelous positive social mirror they can be. My mother is like that. Even now, in her late 80s, she takes a deep personal interest in every one of her descendants. She writes us love letters. I was reading one the other day on a plane with tears streaming down my cheeks. I can call her up tonight, and I know she'd say, "Stefan, I want you to know how much I love you and how wonderful I think you are." She's constantly reaffirming a strong intergenerational family is potentially one of the most fruitful, rewarding, and satisfying interdependent relationships, and many people feel the importance of that relationship. I look at the fascination we all had with roots some years ago. Each of us have roots and the ability to trace those roots to identify our ascentors. The highest and most powerful motivation in doing that is not for ourselves only, but for our posterity, for the posterity of all mankind. As someone once observed, there are only two lasting banquets we can give our children. One is roots, the other wings. Becoming a transition person. Among other things, I believe that giving wings to our children and to those and to others means empowering them with the freedom to rise above negative scripting that had been passed down to us. I believe it means becoming what my friend and associate Dr. Terry Warner calls a transition person. Instead of transferring those scripts to the first generation, we can change them, and we can do it in a way that will build relationships in the process. If your parents abuse you as a child, that does not mean that you have to abuse your own children. Yet there's plenty of evidence to indicate that you will tend to live out that script. But because you're proactive, you can rewrite the script. You can choose not only not to abuse your children, but to affirm them, to script them in positive ways. You can write it in your personal mission statement and into your mind and heart. You can visualize yourself living in harmony with that mission statement in your daily private victory. You can take steps to love and forgive your own parents, and if they are still living, to build a positive relationship with them by seeking to understand. A tendency that's run through your family for generations can stop with you. You're a transition person, a link between the past and the future, and your own change can affect many, many lives downstream. One powerful transition person of the 20th century, Anwar Sadat, left us as part of his legacy a profound understanding of the nature of change. Sadat stood between a past that had created a huge wall of suspicion, fear, hate, and misunderstanding between Arabs and Israelis, and a future in which increased conflict and isolation seemed inevitable. Efforts at negotiation had been met with objections on every scale, even to formalities and procedural points, to an insufficient comma or period in the text of proposed agreements. While others attempted to resolve the tense situation by hacking at the leaves, Sadat grew upon his earlier centered experience in a lonely prison cell and went to work on the root. And in doing so, he changed the course of history for millions of people. He records in his autobiography, "It was then that I drew, almost unconsciously, on the inner strength I had developed in cell 54 of Cairo Central Prison. A strength, call it a talent or capacity for change. I found that I faced a highly complex situation and that I couldn't hope to change it until I had armed myself with the necessary psychological and intellectual capacity. My contemplation, my contemplation of life and human nature in that seduced place had taught me that he who cannot change the very fabric of his thought will never be able to change reality and will never therefore make any progress. Change, real change from the inside out. It doesn't come from the hacking at the leaves of attitude and behavior with quick fix personality ethic techniques. It comes from striking at the root, the fabric of our thought, the fundamental essential paradigms which give definition to our character and create the lens through which we see the world. In the words of the philosopher Amil, moral truth can be conceived and thought. One can have feelings about it. One can will to live it. But moral truth may have been penetrated and possessed in all these ways and escaped us still. Deeper even than consciousness, there is our being itself and our very substance, our nature. Only those truths which have entered into this last region, which have become ourselves, become spontaneous and involuntary as well as voluntary, unconscious as well as conscious, are really our life. That is to say, something more than property. So long as we're able to distinguish any space, whatever, between truth and us, we remain outside it. The thought, the feeling, the desire, or the consciousness of life may not be quite life. To become divine is then the aim of life. Then only can truth be said to to ours beyond the possibility of loss. It is no longer outside us, nor in a sense even in us, but we are it, and it is we. Achieving unity, oneness with ourselves, with our loved ones, with our friends, and working associates is the highest and best and most delicious fruit of the 7 habits. Most of us have tasted this fruit of true unity from time to time in the past, as we've also last tasted the bitter, lonely fruit of disunity, and we know how precious and fragile unity is. Obviously, building a character, a total integrity, and living the life of love and service that creates such unity isn't easy. It isn't a quick fix, but it's possible. It begins with the desire to center our lives on correct principles, to break out of the paradigms created by others centers and the comfort zones of unworthy habits. Sometimes we make mistakes, we feel awkward, but if we start with the daily private victory and work from the inside out, the results will surely come. As we plant the seed and patiently weed and nourish it, we begin to feel the excitement of real growth and eventually taste the incomparably delicious fruits of a congruent, effective life. Again, I quote Emerson, that which we persist in doing becomes easier. Not that the nature of the task has changed, but our ability to do has increased. By centering our lives on correct principles and creating a balanced focus between doing and increasing our ability to do, we become empowered in the task of creating effective, useful, and peaceful lives for ourselves and for our prosperity. A personal note. As I conclude this book, I would like to share my own personal conviction concerning what I believe to be the source of correct principles. I believe that correct principles are natural laws and that God, the Creator, the Father of us all, is the source of them and also the source of our conscience. I believe that to the degree people live by this inspired conscience, they will grow to fulfill their natures. To the degree that they do not, they will not rise above the animal plane. I believe that there are parts to human nature that cannot be reached by either legislation or education, but require the power of God to deal with. I believe that as human beings, we cannot perfect ourselves to the degree to which we align ourselves with our correct principles. Divine endowments will be released with our nature and enabling us to fulfill the measure of our creation. In the words of the Charter, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. I personally struggle with much of what I have shared in this book, but the struggle is worthwhile and fulfilling. It gives meaning to my life and enables us to love, serve, and to try again. Again, T.S. Eliot expresses so beautifully my own personal discovery and conviction. We must not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we begin and to know the place for the first time. I'll end it off there. Very powerful note. Purely on the basis of, look at the example of someone that just read a 370 page book about the various attributes, characteristics that make a complete person. And there he goes explaining that we are not perfect. Sometimes we're going to make mistakes, but that's what part of life is. That's what makes life so much more worthwhile and so much more justifiable when it comes to a more fulfilling life. I think that's a very powerful message, but yet alone, one of the things that he ended off with on that regard is to keep trying again. Yeah, we might make mistakes. We all do make mistakes, but if we're able to recognize that we made the mistake, but to continue trying on a better scale, on a better attitude, on a better ability, on a better level of principles, that's what life is all about. And I think that's a very powerful message that a lot of successful people preach. Even if they don't preach it out loud, they recognize it in the back of their mind. And I think that's something that I will hold true to, and I will try to embrace every day in my life. The book is not over yet. There's still a couple more pages to go, but we're getting it off there today. I appreciate you guys for tagging along. This is not the end. I will, reiterate this on the next video, but I will get another book and I will continue on making videos, sharing you my thoughts on a book, my thoughts on certain segments and ideas and concepts, and whatnot. But also being able to practice my train of thinking and my ability to read. So yeah, thank you. I'll see you guys soon.